Chris says she'll be here in a minute.
Okay. Well, she won't miss much.
The laptop is slow.
Okay.
My laptop's not the only thing that's slow.
Hello.
I'm gonna have to find a picture to.
Oh yeah, I gotta get these little pictures
Edit.
down here. So.
Let's see. All right. I am.
There we go. All right.
I'm going to mute everybody. So whenever you get ready and you have a question or anything, just feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay. All right, we're going to start actually with the frame tool. I kind of went back and forth. I initially said we're going to start and do the frame tool first and then do the libraries and then go into selected mask. But this last week, whenever I said, trying to get more people to sign up, I kind of did it the other way around. But I want to get the frame tool and the library tool out of the way because they won't take long. The frame tool will be about 5 minutes, I think, and the library tool maybe about 10 to 15 minutes, and then give us a lot of time to do the selected mask, because I have about, well, if you download it or if you saw to download, and there's several files that I was going to try to do. So, and they're a little bit time consuming. So let's go ahead and start the frame tool. And the frame tool, if you can see my cursor over here on the left in the toolbar, the frame tool is this little square with the X in it. And if you just click on that.
Bob, I'm seeing you and not your screen.
Really?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Everybody else in my screen?
Yes, Mary, there's another window someplace that has Bob's screen in it.
Okay. Well, I didn't see it either, so. Nope, don't see it.
Do you have...
Wait a minute, now I think I got it. Okay. Unless that's mine.
Look down on your taskbar. There should be about
I found it now.
Zoom windows, and just click them until you find it.
Yeah, I found it.
Okay. Okay, good.
I can get rid of this one so I can see you. Ah, dang, it went away again. Okay, just keep going. I'll figure it out here in a minute.
Well, okay. The frame tool, again, is just over here on the left-hand side. It's a square with the X in it. And when you click on it, if you look up here on the options bar, you only have two options, either a rectangle or an ellipse. So if you have the rectangle selected, which is what I do, you just come in here and drag out a frame, whatever size you want. And if you look, there's a little notation there that gives you the size. So you get, if you want a 5 by 7, you can click out here to 5 and go out here to around 7, something like that, and get close, because once you do that, you can come over here to properties and zoom it in. I'll be on the right hand side. If you can see my cursor, here are the properties window over here. You can actually set the exact size. So if we want it to be a 7-inch by 5, we just come in here and put it in like that, and it'll resize to be exact. But if you don't care about what size it is and you're creating a collage or whatever, or a Christmas card or something, then you just size it to whatever size you want. And then the next thing you do is you need to bring a picture or some kind of object into this bucket over here. If you look at my layers panel on the right hand side, this white object, you need to bring something in there to be inside the frame. So basically, if I come over here and go to here and pull in a picture, and let's see, cursor. I'm just going to grab a picture from in here somewhere. I should have had this already decided. How about this one? We're going to pull this picture in, then I can just grab it and pull it in to here like this, I think. Or I can right click and open it in Photoshop. And then I can drag it over there. like this. You know, my Photoshop has been acting really funny today. There we go. Drag it over here. And now I have this picture, and I can just drag this picture down in here into the frame. And now you've got this picture inside the frame. So if you wanted that to be the other way around, like the picture is, I just come in here and change this to 5 and change this to 7. And it'd be a 5 by 7. And then I can take the picture, make sure I'm clicked on the picture, and move it around in here. So it's a lot like a clipping mask. So if you remember a couple of times ago, we talked about clipping mask, where you create your frame and then you add your picture and clip your picture to the frame. It's identical to that. The only difference is that you don't have quite the same capabilities as you have with the clipping mask. So if you come over here and click, I'm on the layers panel again over here, and I click on the object itself, the frame tool itself, and bring up the properties again. These are the things that you can do. For example, the X and Y axis here basically just tells you where the corner is of your frame. The insert image, here's another way to insert an image. I did it purposely the other way, but you could also go in here and you can get it from your libraries, or you can do a link embedded, or a file embed, place embed, or a place linked, just like you can if you come over here to file embed and link. Or you can also get it from Adobe Stock if you're an Adobe Stock member. But if I wanted to embed another one, I click on here and it automatically opens up a folder where you can go in and grab an image and click on it. And these are all of our other images. If I go back to pictures again and grab a different image. I want a JPEG this small. How about this one? That's my wounded hand. I don't know why it's still in here. But you click on that and it brings it over here automatically. So that's another way to get a picture in here. Layer comps, well, we didn't talk about stroke. Stroke, is just a outline around the image. So if I select stroke, and let's make it really big, let's bring it up here to like 78. And I'm going to make it outside the image so you can see it. And if you click on this, then you have the option of changing the color or whatever you want the stroke to be. So if I click over here, this is your actual color box that you're used to. And I can select red, and now we'll have a red stroke around that box. And it went back to 1 pixel. I'm not sure why. Okay, it's going to be big, 100 and something pixels. So when you click out of it, it's going back to 1 pixel. Okay, there we go. And now, well, I don't know what's going on here. This worked great earlier, but for some, it's inside, outside at. I never used this, but I don't know what's going on here. Photoshop's been acting really funny today. I'm not sure what's going on. I rebooted and everything, but anyway, that is a stroke. That's one way to put a stroke around it. But the shortfall on this is that whenever I create a collage or something like this, I like to use layer styles. And the layer styles, if I double click over here, I want to put a drop shadow on this, for example. And I have a drop shadow. And if you look, I have a nice, in the preview here, I have a nice little drop shadow, and I click and there's no drop shadow. So it's not, it doesn't add any kind of a layer style to it. The link, the stroke is the only thing that is similar to a layer style. So if you wanted to use a layer style, you would have to come in here, and this is the way I would do it. I would create a new layer, and I would use my marquee tool and select something close. Oops, not a circle, rectangle. Come in here and select. You'd have to do this in order to actually add a drop, a drop shadow to it. So I create this. Now I can go to a layer style, and I can come in here and do a drop shadow. And now I have a drop shadow. So I mean, you just have to do workarounds to make it do things that you want it to do. So the other way, or the other thing you can do with your frames is that, let's say I wanted to add a text in here, and I'm going to add a text, and I'm going to call it white. White on white doesn't show up, so we're going to make it black. So now we're going to come in here, we're going to make this big so that it almost fills this box. And then we're going to come in here and go to character, and I'm going to move it down like that. And then I'm going to stretch it like this. Move it down some more. So we have a text box that's something like this. And inside this text box, I can do a right click and I can say convert to frame. So now I can just call this frame Jenna, and now I need to go find a picture for it. So I can come in here and let's do a place embed or a picture for this frame. And I'll come in here to iCloud files, which is where our stuff is. And select a mask, and I'll pick a picture of Jenna. And it's going to bring this picture of Jenna, and you have the same kind of thing that you do with your frames whenever you are doing a clipping mask. The only difference here is that you're now, if you say, oh, I misspelled her name, there's not anything you can do. With a clipping mask, you can just double click on the text and make a change. But here, if you make a mistake, you actually have to redo the frame. So that's a kind of a thing that's not a good idea. So I mean, you can do this with, but it's the same thing if you have a graphic. If I had a graphic to put up here, maybe a logo or somebody's mascot or something, and I wanted to embed or put something inside that as a frame, I could do that as well. So not much on frames. I think that it's an opportunity for something really good down the road, but it hasn't won my heart yet. And that's why we haven't talked about it. I'm still using clipping masks for everything because they're a lot more flexible. And they're easy to understand. They are for me anyway, and they're a lot more flexible. So that's it. Any questions on frames? Pretty simple. I'll take that as a no since nobody's saying anything.
I'll take it back off of my toolbar.
It can be, like I said, I think it can be something big down in the future, but it's not something that I can use, that I use today. Clipping masks are pretty simple. So let's talk about libraries real quick. Libraries are awesome. And if you don't have libraries, a panel, let's come over here to Windows and go in here and click libraries to open the panel. And then you can either move that panel inside another panel, or you can keep it separate, keep it out here on the toolbar. I usually have it in here because I refer to it a lot. And you can see here when I've got it open, here's a bunch of skies. And when I do sky replacements in Photoshop, this is my library of skies. And I've got several of them down here. And these are skies that I've gotten in the past, either have shot some of these or have gotten them free with something else or whatever. So these are just a bunch of skies that I've collected over the years. I also have textures, another thing I use constantly, and I have a lot of textures. You can see some of these are my textures that I created. Some of them are textures that, I purchased some textures, but I also got some free with other things and that sort of thing. You get some textures free with Photoshop too. But if you use textures a lot, like I do, then this is a great place to put them. And then you have other things in here where I've got poster titles. Remember, I do some posters and posters and banners. And then I've got light rays. If you use light rays for anything, these are some that I really forget that I have those. I usually create my own, but that's a nice place or something to go back to basketball. These are for inspiration. If I wanted to, you know, what am I going to do? What can I do? I just double click on that and it opens up here and I can go, oh, that's kind of cool. If I had the basketball court, you know, basketball goal over here and blah, 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 I could do that. So just kind of for inspiration. I've got a lot more and I should probably load them here too. And then there's other things, you know, whenever I create posters and banners, I have this RHS, I've got their Rockin' R and this Rockin' R, and then I've got the Yellow Jacket. And this is a card, business card for their sponsor. So it has to go on every poster, every one of the girls' posters. And then these are colors that I've used with them. You can also put those in here. So there's lots of different things that you can put in here. And I use those quite a bit. Here's smoke and fog. I don't really use those very much, but they're in here. And I got like 1,000 of them or something. There's a ton of them in here, different smoke and fog that I can grab and put in an image. Yes, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's layer styles, text styles that I have in here. So if I find a style that I really like for a particular banner or poster, then I can just grab it here. So, oops, that one's empty. Bored thinking, I guess, and hadn't filled it up. So anyway, let's talk about what this exactly is. Let's talk about the panel first. In the panel, if you know the name of your asset, you can just type it in here and it will go find it. For example, in my, where are they? My skies. In my skies, if you know, it gives you the name right here. It's, you can see as it pops up there, Heavenly Sunset Intended, whatever that means. And if I know that's the name of the one I use over and over and over and over, I can just type it in here and it will find it for me. Typically, I don't know the name of what they are, so I just come scrolling through here. And even if I did, I don't use the same one over and over. I usually find one that fits best with whatever I'm working on. But that's what this does. Now, all of them, you know, every panel here has this little drop down. So I'm going to open that up, and there's lots of stuff in here. If you want to create a new library, this is how you do that. You can create a new library from your document. If you have a lot of things in your document that you want to save, for example, a layer style and a graphic and a text style and all that stuff, you can just click here and say, give it a name, and it will create a library specifically for that. If I want to export this library that I'm on, which is Skies, I can export it. I can import a library. I can invite people to come and look at my libraries. I can get a link, and the link here is the link to Creative Cloud, because the way this works is it saves it locally, but it also saves it into the cloud. And then on your laptop, my laptop, I can go in and say, open it up, and it's there. So it links and it syncs to the other installations that you have. I can rename this, and by the way, when you click on that, you can go look at it on the internet, and you can work there. You can delete them from there. You can add them from there, and that sort of thing. I can rename this if I don't like Skies as the name. I can delete it, and then you can sort what's in there by alphabetically instead of last modified. Those really don't matter to me. Allow show names, and I always show the names. View it on the website. Again, this goes to the website, so you can go see it. You can view the items that you deleted, and then learn more what's new and that kind of stuff. I don't really deal in this very much except to create the library or delete a library or something like that. Okay. Here is if I want to see it in icon view, which is exactly the way I like to see it. You can also see it in list view like this. It tells you what kind of file it is. These are all JPEGs, but I do have some PSDs in here. But I like to see it here because I can see a bigger visual of the image. View by type. You can either view by group or by type, meaning that this is the type of file that I'm looking at. This is, I can look at the different groups. So I can do it this way, create a group, I like to view it by type. Then down here towards the bottom, we have different ways to add new assets in. You can click here and cancel the tour. You can create from the image, which means it's going to create from the image that I have over here. Foreground color, it's just going to select the foreground color to put in there. So if you have a custom color that you have made sure that it perfectly matches the banner or poster or whatever you're working on. If you're working on a Christmas card or something, you can save that foreground color. You can save the graphic that's associated with it. So you can have the graphic that's over here. It creates itself as a graphic image in here. And these are all graphics right here. And when I said create from image, that means it's going to create everything. It's going to create your graphics, it's going to create your layer style, your text style, your color, and all of those things. It's going to do all of that, which is the same as add all. Then right here, you want to create a new group. And right here, that's just the same thing as up here for creating a new library. It's basically the same thing. And here is basically adding content from library from this document. So I don't use these. That's why I'm kind of not real clear on what the differences are. I always just drag them in here, creating a library. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So right now I'm going to create a library, and we're going to call it softball fields. Images. And I created some images for the softball team, and I'm just going to come over here to Finder and make this a little smaller. And oops, PSD files. And I'm going to add these PSDs. Now, one of these PSDs is more than a gigabyte, so you can't add any files over here that are more than a gigabyte. So that's this one. And whenever I found that out, that this was too big, I just went in there and created a second file that's smaller so that I could have it over here. And if it doesn't have enough information in the layers, then I can always go back to the original. So what I'm going to do is take all of these, except for this one, and I'm going to drag them over here like this. And these are fairly good sized files, so it will take just a moment. You can see the beach ball rolling along here. But this is going to be really nice because it's going to give me the ability to go in and open up these files or see these files and maybe start working on a new project or something. Now they didn't go over there, so I'm not sure what's going on here. When I did it earlier, it took them a while to get over there. So we'll give it a second. But the good thing about this, I'll go ahead and go see if, I don't know if they're waiting on something, but I'm going to go ahead and go to like one of the other ones here so we can see what I'm talking about. Let's try this. Let's go back here. Sportsman. Well, there we go. There's nothing in there. Okay. Let's just use a layer style for an example. I don't want to use that one. I'm going to use should have had this already figured out. I'm wasting time. Here we go. We'll use one of these. If I take this and the good thing about this is I can just drag it, or if I drag it over like this, it gives me the file as a single file. So I can take this and I can, make it whatever size. I hit enter, and you can see this right here. And what this right here is, you can see over here on the layer palette where I'm circling. This is the same as if it were a smart object. So I can double click on here, and it opens up in a new file with all of the detail in here. So I can come in here and make a change if I want to, which is really cool. Now, let's pretend like I've made the change that I wanted, and I come back, and let's just do it a different way. If I decide that I want to see all of those here, I can press Option or Alt and drag it over here, and I get the same thing, but everything is here. So it's not like a smart object. It's before the smart object created. So you have the two different options. So I have this drag, and I can use this. This is something a layer style I really like to use on my posters. So I guess that's going to load on the basketball background. Ah, no, it's basketball backgrounds. Softball background. Softball right here, field images. So they never did load. So let's try again. Maybe I should do them one at a time. I'm just going to grab this one and bring it over here. And it gave me an error message there. So what was the error message? No, add to library. So I'm adding it to library, but it's not adding. Access your design elements. Well, you should be able to drag and drop. Like I said, this thing, yeah, here we go. Now they're coming in. So it's just taking a few minutes. And these are going to be really nice, like I said, because then I can go back and look at these and double click on it, open it up, and already have a good start on a new poster. So if I take this and throw it away and start from scratch, and let's say I take this and I'm going to press Option and pull it across, and it's going to open up. So you know, these may not work for you, but this is something that's really a great deal for me, because it gives me all these options. And whenever we look at all these layers here for this particular item, it really gives me a good head start. Now, you can see here that this image was cropped, so it doesn't really give it to me with the crop in mind. I have to go in and crop it myself, because I gave it a canvas and I just put it on the back, on the canvas. But this is a good start with all these layers that I've already done. And if I wanted to bring someone in here and put them on here and create a banner for them, I've already got the background done. So anyway, where this is going to come in great for you guys is, let me close these, is that we have skies and we have textures. And if you are going to do anything close to what I'm doing here to show you whenever we do the select and mask, you're going to be very thankful that you have skies and textures over here readily available at your fingertips. Textures, there we go. So that was a real quick thing on libraries, and I really went through it real fast because you're probably not going to use it very much. But if you have any skies or textures that you may want to use, then you can have them right here. The other way to do it is you have to go File, Place, Embed, and then go out and find what you're looking for, and then click on it and bring it in, and then it gets embedded into your file. So that works too, and I did that for years until this thing came around. So any questions on libraries? Sounds like a no. So let's talk about select and mask. Like I said, this is going to take a while, so I'm glad that we have like an hour and a half here to work on it. Select and mask is basically the next step after you make a selection on how you're going to make an extraction of something so that you can put it on a new background or replace it with something else. And in a case like this, with you've seen many pictures of this girl that whenever I do anything, she is a good friend that hadn't been around in a while, but I have lots of pictures of her, so lots of samples. And I want to start out slow. And this is a very simple one because it has a pretty, pretty contrasty or pretty white, solid color background, which means that it's going to contrast real well with her. The only areas right here is going to be an issue. So this will work real well to make a very quick and easy background or extraction. The one thing you have to keep in mind, especially when you're extracting people, is that if they're being extracted off of a light background, that light background has an influence on their edges. And when you put them on another light background, it's not noticeable. When you put them on a dark background, it's very noticeable. So if you have an option, the option would be to know in advance and shoot on the tone of the background that matches what you're going to use. So you'll see what I mean in just a minute. There are ways to try to get around that, but there are none of them that are really very good. Let me just kind of start in with how we're going to make this extraction. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and put a texture in here because when we get into select and mask, we have the option to see what it's going to look like when you're done if you have the background there that you're going to use. So I'm going to select 3 of them. I'm going to just kind of grab this one and pull it down here. And I need to put it underneath her. So we're going to start right there. And didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go here and I'm going to resize it so that it takes over the entire image. Then I'm going to come in here with one that's a little bit darker. We'll try this one. Same thing. I'm going to resize it. And this is just to help us to understand what it's going to look like. So we're going to bring another darker one in here now. Let's bring this one in here. And I actually want these in the opposite order. So grab this one, bring it down here. All right. So now I have this, and I usually forget to do this, so that's good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select her, and there's we've already gone over 10 different ways to make selections. And for this, the easiest way for me is just to come up here and do select subject. And it's going to do a really good job. I don't know if you can see the marching ants here, but it did a really good job around her arms, real nice. It didn't get these flyaways, but you wouldn't expect it to get those flyaways. And it's right here. I don't know if that top actually goes down like this or if it's like that, so I'm just going to leave it alone. So with this, we've already done, the selection. And select and mask, all it does is it improves your selection. So we're going to come up here and do select, select and mask. And this is going to open the select and mask dialog. And this is much expanded over the refine edge as it used to be. It actually has its own little interface. Before, you just had a little box that popped up and then you would make your changes and then you would do your thing. But now you've got an entire dialog box here. And over here on the left-hand side, where my cursor is, you're already familiar with most of these. This first one is the quick mask, or quick selection, I always call it the quick mask. It's a quick selection tool. The second one is actually the refine edge brush, which is something you had not seen that you're going to see in just a minute. Then we have the brush tool itself. Then we have select object. So if you want, if there's something in here that wasn't selected, you can use select object to add to the selection. Then you have the lasso tool, and you have not just the lasso, but the polygonal lasso tool. And then you have the hand tool and the zoom tool. There's one thing I want you to make sure you know, and that is that, first of all, you have one undo. So whenever you do Command Z, that's it. You only have one. And every time when you do that, it's going to pop you down here to the zoom tool. So I don't know why it does that, but it doesn't matter what you're working on. When you do a Command Z to back up, it's going to pop you down here to the zoom tool. And that for me is a little bit aggravating, but it's just something you need to know. Only one undo and it goes down to the zoom tool. Okay. Let's go to the right-hand side. And what we have over here are a few different areas in the properties panel. First area is the view area. And all this does is it shows you different things. So it doesn't make any changes, doesn't do any adjustments. It just shows you things. And what we have it set on now is on layers, which means that it's using the selection you made and removing the background and showing you the layer that you put behind her. And that's the reason I did that. So without doing anything, you actually have a pretty good selected mask. Okay. Up here at the top, you have onion skin. What onion skin is it goes from the background all the way up. As you go, it starts slowly going to that, to delete the background. You go all the way over here to 100% and the background is totally gone. I usually like to keep this around 50%, somewhere in there. If I'm using the onion skin, which I don't use very often, but it gives me an idea of what the background is as well as where we're going with it. So then the next one, marching ants, if you just want to see the marching ants, I never use that one. The overlay tool gives you an opportunity to put a color behind her so that you can maybe see a little bit better what's going on. And again, you have the ability to go all the way up to a really bright green, all the way down to something barely green at all. I usually, again, keep that around 50%. If you don't like green, or if it's clashing with something, you just click in here and go pick another color. Maybe something like a light blue, and maybe that looks a little bit better where you can see more about what's going on. Then you have on black. Again, on black, I normally have it at 50% so that it's really a gray looking color. Same with white. But the only reason that's a gray looking color though is because it's black, and the underground and the background that's on the original image is white. So if you bring black down, it mixes with white and becomes gray. If you have on white, then you're mixing white on white and you're getting white. So it doesn't matter where you are in here, you're going to see white on white. Maybe it's more white here than it is down here, but I normally also leave that around 50% if I'm going to use that. Then you have black on white. That's just your mask. You can see that there's something that was missed down here, so we want to make sure we handle that. And then on layers, which is what I normally use because it shows me the actual layers that, or the actual background layer with her extracted and on that layer. So you can see if it makes sense, if there are any halos or anything, dark edges or whatever that you need to fix. It's much easier to see. Okay, then you have this area up here. Show edge only works or shows you anything if you have your edge detection on. It actually shows you what your edge is. And it did this before, and I don't know what's going on here, but there is no edge that it's showing. So it's kind of weird. If I take this and move it and then show edge, it shows the edge. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I don't know if that's a bug in the system or what. But anyway, the edge is showing you the selection that was made, and then depending on how big this edge is, it's going to tell it how far outside it's considering to determine what the extraction should be. So in other words, if I take this and I push it up to 53, now it's got a huge edge on it. And smart edge, if I turn that off, see now without the smart edge on, it's just a great big edge. You can't see my cursor. That's I don't know what's going on here, but you can't see my cursor. And with this really big, it's just a great big band that pushes out toward the outside of her and says, I want to consider all of this. So if there were, it's really not going to make much difference because there's only the one color. There's the brown on her hair and the white background. So it's not going to make a lot of difference. Typically, this is better if it's small. And I usually keep it around 5 or 6 because that means that I only want to consider that very fine edge close to it. But because what if there were other colors out there? What if there's a background of multiple colors? I don't want it to consider anything for, very far from the edge, typically. But in this case, it doesn't really matter whether I have it big or not because it's white all the way across. So anyway, show original is basically just show me the original picture. And I usually don't have that turned on. High quality preview, if I turn that on, it uses resources, but it also shows you what it's actually doing. So if I need to paint in somewhere, it's going to show me a better preview of what it really looks like. So that's one of those where maybe I use it, maybe I don't, depending on what I'm painting on. So I'm going to turn that off for now. So one more time down here, this I usually have Smart Radius turned on. And what Smart Radius does is it tries to determine based on the edge that you have selected in your selection and the subject and the background. It tries to determine what you're looking for. So and that's why if you bring this up, it actually gives me 2 different edges. One is for the individual or the subject and one is for the background. So if I have this turned down to like 5 or 6, you can barely see it in there. If I zoom in, you can see that there are 2 lines. So it's trying to be a smart edge. So this is really where all the magic is in this edge detection. Now, if I turn off show edge, it's going to bring back the image. And now we get down here to global refinements. Remember last time we talked about selections when we did the select, modify, and we had border and smooth and expand and contract and feather. These are exactly the same thing. The smooth and the feather are exactly the same thing. Smooth is if you have some peaks and valleys and some rough edges, this is going to smooth out those peaks and valleys and rough edges. I rarely use this because I can always use it under the select menu. The feather, I like to use the feather because it keeps me from having to use it over there. So it basically helps give me this nice smooth transition on her arm here. It also softens the hair a little bit if there are some what I'll call crunchies on there. Contrast, let me show you what contrast does. Watch her arm there as I move the contrast over. See how hard that is now? And you really can't see it as well as you can with another background, but it gets really hard edge there. It defeats the purpose of the feather. I never use contrast. Doesn't mean it's not something good to use. Shift edge basically does exactly what that is. If you have your selection right down her arm here and I shift and it's got a little halo on it or a black edge or something on it, if I move the edge in, it's going to move that selection in and cut in a little bit more to take away that edge. If I move it the other way, it's going to push it out to have a little bit more of the background. Now with this radius and the smart radius, I'm not sure that that really does very much. So I typically don't use that either. So the next thing is the output settings. Desaturate colors, or decontaminate colors, decontaminate colors. If you are shooting her and you're getting some light bounce or you're getting something that is causing an edge on her, a glow or something, then you can use this decontaminate colors, and basically you click that and you just turn it up and it will try to look at the colors here and even them out. It does that on the hair, it does that globally. Again, it's a global setting. I rarely use that. And then you have your output. What do I want it to output? I almost always do it to new layer mask, but there could be times when you would want just a selection or just a layer mask, or you could even create a new document with it, so you don't want to mess up the current document. So I typically, like I said, use new layer, layer mask, and you'll see why here in just a second. But now, as you can see, I don't use much here. I basically use the edge detection, and then I use the feather, and that is it. Now, if there's anything that is not selected, then that's where I need to use my refine brush, because that means that I'm refining the original selection. So if I look at show edge, there's none of these flyaways that are selected. And you have down here at the bottom, you just can't see I can't even find my cursor. Down here, this, oops, that was a mistake. There we go. Okay. I pressed the V to try to go to the move tool. So one more thing I wanted to be sure and tell you, and I'm kind of glad I did that. Notice that the shift or the show edge is grayed out up here in the upper right. And that's because I'm no longer on the refine edge tool. So if I click on the refine edge tool, now that is back with me. But what I was trying to show you is that the edge that was selected does not have these flyaways. Now, typically on an image like this, you don't want flyaways. But I would kind of argue that a few flyaways are okay, because that kind of adds to the credibility that this is not an extraction. So if you can get some of these flyaways, and you don't have to get many of them, like you don't have to get all this down here, but if you just get a few, then whoever looks at this is going to think, well, that's a perfect image. So, well, maybe not perfect, but that's a good extraction. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, and I'm going to, first of all, before I get going here, I'm going to take this out of here. This is where, for some reason, on the original select subject, it did not select this. I'm not sure why, but it didn't. So what I can do is I can press my Option or Alt, and that becomes a minus in there, which means that I want to tell the mask, if I paint over this, I want it to not consider that. And then whenever it should go away, but it didn't go away. That's interesting. So now we're going to come in here. We'll just get that later. It's pretty simple. We're going to come in here. This is the refine edge brush, and I'm just going to kind of paint over some of this and see if I can bring back some of those flyaways up there. And when it starts its thing, that means that it is thinking and it's learning. Okay, now I don't have this high quality preview turned on, so that might make a difference. It's going to make it slower, so we probably won't do that very much. So I think that those are now in here. So click on that a little bit. I'm not going to try to bring in too many of these, because it doesn't really matter how much, as long as you have a few in here, and you don't want her to look like a cone head or something, you know, you want this to look like real hair. So now with that, see how my beach ball is going? That's with that high quality thing turned on. So now what we're going to do is basically that's all I do is come in here and I'll try to get some of the hair. And if I want to bring some of these flyaways back, I'll need to sit here and paint these in and try to get those flyaways back. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. So with all of this, all of that said and done, I'm just going to click OK. And this is going to take us back over here. And let's see if we got some of those flyaways up there. Yeah, not really. But sometimes you'll get those flyaways in here, and just to give it a little bit more credibility. So if you don't like that, you can always click on this and go to Properties and go back to Select and Mask right here and try to do some more. So you can come back in here and try to select some more of those. Now the problem is that we're using a mask that's already taken those out. So if we're going to do this again, we really need to come back and actually do it again. So that would be come in here, turn this off. I could do this pretty quickly now. Select. And I kind of did that on purpose so you could see how, you know, what the process is. I was kind of hoping some of those flyaways would come in. So we're going to do select. All right, select a mask. And now we're back into selected mask. And we have the mask again, show edge. And we have this. So now I can actually come in here and I'm going to paint here. And I'm telling that edge that I want it to consider more. See how skinny that edge is? And I'm making it much bigger. And since I have that high quality preview on, this is going to go to the beach ball and it's going to take a minute. And that's one of the reasons why I was trying to go through this a little faster. Okay, so that's there. And we're telling it we want to consider that. We could actually try this one over here too, because it's a little darker and it might show up a little better. So go ahead and do this. And you actually have some over here that we could also do. So we'll do this. There we go. All right. I'll turn off show edge and let's go to on white. And on white you can see on black. Now we have a little bit of a mess here with some of the white coming through. So I'm going to come in here and try to remove that. I'm going to turn off the high quality and we'll see if it improves. That improved. Come down here and grab this. See if that works out. That's actually getting a little worse. Come down here to the bottom. One of the things, like I was saying, is I can't find my cursor half the time and I'm painting in the wrong place. And if anybody knows how to make your cursor a different color, let me know, because it's clear and I don't really like the idea of the dragging behind it. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's still not very good, but we'll see how to fix that here in a second. Okay, so here's my cursor. I'm going to come over here to the left side. And like I said, we're putting her on a dark background, so you're seeing these white halos from the white background she was extracted from. And that's why I wanted you to see the different backgrounds. And by coming over here and trying to get this, I'm pulling in some of that white. So it might be better to just on the left-hand side here, where you can't see my cursor because I can't see it, to just take away those flyaways. And we'll do that in just a second. But it did improve up here at the top where we had some white stuff. And you can see some of these flyaways in here that it actually added. So if I take this now and go to OK, on the white, you can't really see those flyaways because they're lighter color. If I turn this off and go to this darker one, now you can see some of these flyaways up here and this right here, but it also looks real milky and really bad. And if I turn that off and go to this, looks even worse. So this is what happens whenever you put her on a dark background when you extracted her from a light background. So again, you should be looking to put her on a background similar to what she was on. And if we have to have her on a darker background like this one, there are ways that you can fix this. And I'm going to show you, they're not great, but there are some kind of, there's something that you can do to try to help that out. So the first thing we're going to do, let me get rid of this one, try to make that work, is I'm going to take this and copy it so that I always have it. I'm going to right click and apply this layer mask so that I have her by herself. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the transparency for this layer. Now, we went through this last year sometime, but if you remember when I use these lock tools, that means that it's not allowing any editing activity for whatever those tools are. So what I'm saying here is locking this transparency means that if I want to paint with black, and wherever my cursor is, if I can find it, there it is. Over here, I can't paint in the background, but I can paint on her. So it's not painting on the background, it's just painting on her because the background is transparent in regard to this layer. So what I'm going to do with that is you can do a couple of things. The preferred method for me is to use a clone stamp tool. Whoops, I hit the C instead of the S. Clone stamp tool, and change this to darker color. What that means is that whatever I paint on will only paint if it's a darker color, paint a darker color than it. So in other words, if I take a sample right here and then come up here and paint, it's only going to paint on that with a darker color. Okay? So that's kind of painting that away, only if it's a darker color. So again, here, come up here, and you can kind of see this go away. Now this takes a few minutes to do, but this is one way that you can take that out. This is darker, so you want to sample from here. So this only works though if your hair in this instance is going in the same direction, and it is here. So I'm going to come here and paint this. Now you could also be painting from the background, because even though you can't paint on the background, you can sample from it. So if I wanted to do it that way instead, I could come out here and sample out here and paint over here and paint it away as well. I'm just painting over it with the background color instead. So this is a way to get rid of some of this halo, and you would just have to go all the way around. Now the second method is that you could actually paint a color using your brush. So in this instance, all of this all the way around really works well with cloning. So I'm going to continue with that, and then whenever we get to the next image, you'll see that it doesn't work real well, so I'll show you how to do it with the paintbrush. The problem with using the paintbrush is that you're taking away texture. Whoops, painted on our finger there. So I really like to rotate this and do this, so hope I don't make you dizzy here, but the best way for me to do this is to come in here and then come down here and paint. It's kind of hard because, again, I can't see my cursor very well. So coming in here, and it kind of gets rid of that. Now the flyaway, right there, you can barely see this flyaway right here, is a much lighter color because your flyaway is much thinner. So, let's see. So probably what we would want to do is actually paint it with a brush. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to do a brush, and we're going to change this to darker color. And then I'm going to take a sample, and we're going to sample from down here where it's really light. And then I'm just going to kind of paint over that flyaway because I just want it to show up a little bit. Now, I didn't do a very good job because I can't really go straight up and down very well. So just kind of bring it in here, something like this. And you still can't see it very well, but you would see it on a darker colored background for sure. So then I'm going to come down here back to the clone stamp, and we'll finish it out like that. And now she doesn't have the halos around her. And you really can't see the flyaways, but you could. Now if we go down to the darker one, we'd have to do some more work. Here, you can see some of the flyaways, but I'd have to do some more work because I just did it well enough for the lighter, the middle color. So if I wanted to do, if I really wanted to use this background, I'd have to come here and do some more work. Okay. So not a panacea. This looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. So I mean, for certain backgrounds, it's going to look really good. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay, we'll move on. And it's 5 after 8, so we need to move on faster. Here's another one that has more flyaways, and it would be done basically the same way. This would be a challenge here. You could cut this out totally if you wanted to and not have that. I mean, nobody's going to know. That's something I learned from Joel Grimes a long time ago when I took his class in 2013, was that when you're doing a composite, you don't have to be perfect. Nobody is going to know that that little bit of hair was there unless they see the original picture. And if these flyaways don't come through, nobody's going to know. You know, you probably need to have something right here because you have hair coming out there, but nobody's going to know, you know, what was right and what was wrong. So we'll do this one. I'll do it a lot faster. Select subject. It's going to come in here and select subject, and it does a pretty good job. It misses this area right here. It misses these two areas over here, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is go straight into, well, first of all, let me bring in some more textures. And we're going to come in with, well, let's do a dark one first. We'll do this purple one down here. And her like that. And then we'll take a middle color like this one, bring it down here. And again, I'm going to right click and turn it. And go up like that. And then we'll do a light one like this one. Right click, turn it. And I don't normally do this. I normally put whatever one I plan on using, but this will help see. And this one's not real light, so this one maybe isn't light enough. But anyway, we'll go back and do the select subject. Oops. When you get this, that's because I'm not even on the right layer. So click, you have to be on her. Select and mask. Oh, select subject, sorry. All right, I'll get there. There we go. Now we'll do select and mask. And it's going to come in here. And again, I'm on black, so it's going to show it here. So I'm going to see the areas with the black background. And it actually looks pretty good with this black. I take it and push it up, it's going to begin to look pretty crunchy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this smart radius up to about 10 and see if that helps things a little bit. And it doesn't really fix anything very much there, but what I'm going to do is come in here with my refine edge tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to go around her hair in certain places. Now, you don't normally have to do this, but it's going to help soften those edges because they look a little crunchy to me. Come in here like this, and I'm going to change it to white here in a minute. Now see, I'm going to come in here and paint over this where this white is. I have the high quality preview turned off. Now right here, I wasn't sure before if that was part of her top or not, but I don't think it is. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to try to get rid of this white as well. Like right in here, and I just paint over it. And you have to be careful because you don't want to get rid of her top here too, which I did right there. So one of the things you can do is, this is your paintbrush. I can select the paintbrush, and if I paint with the paintbrush and I'm saying I want to keep this, so I'm just going to paint over this area here to tell it that I want to keep that top. And there's actually a little bit right here that I want to keep as well. Okay, so now I've got that, and if I wanted to take something away, I just push the Alt key and say I want to take this away. So we're going to go back to the refine edge now and paint a little bit more right here. And then we're going to come up here and go around the other way. Right over here, and I'm going a little bit fast, but try to get through this because we want to get to our sky replacements. Okay, here. Let's see if that's, let's turn on the high quality preview. Let's see if that helps. Come in here. Read over this. And right here. All right. So this is a black background, which means it's going to show these highlights a little bit more. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to come in here and we're going to go to white. And actually, let's bring the white down because I want to see these flyaways, and I'm going to paint over these flyaways and try to bring them back. Just a little bit. And I'm actually going to paint right here and try to bring this back and see what I get. Okay, and then over here, flyaways as well. Okay. So now when I take that up, those flyaways are showing in here pretty well. Okay, so now if I go back to black, you've got some of these flyaways showing here. They're going to be a light color because, again, they're coming off of a light background. This looks pretty crunchy here, so if I can't get this to look good, I'll just get rid of it. In fact, let's just go ahead and get rid of it. So I'm going to go with my brush tool again, and I'm going to come in here and just show you. I press my Alt or Option key, and I can just come in here and just take it out. And all I'm saying is don't consider that at all. So now I've got my brush key, my Refine Edge key again, Refine Edge brush again, and I'm just going to paint over it again and just kind of get this to soften up a little bit. Okay. And that right there, take it out again, try to do it a little bit better. And I can do this over on the outside of selected mask a little bit better. So I just kind of took that out, and I can actually take that out if I want to. But this looks pretty good. Now down here it's not so great. Now my radius, my edge detection went to 0. It does that, and I hadn't figured out when it actually does that. So I'm going to kick that back up to 6 and see if that helps. And I'm going to come in here. Whoops. And with the wrong thing. Again, see, I did my Command Z and it took me back to the zoom tool. So I have to remember that. Okay, so now I'm in my Refine Edge, and I'm just going to try to get these a little bit better. Right here. Okay, so now let's go back to on layers, and this is what it's going to look like on that lighter colored layer. And if I don't like it, I can come in here and still make adjustments to it. But I think it's probably not too bad. You'd probably want to come in here and soften this a little bit. And there are other techniques to help with that we can talk about. And this right here looks like some hair without any attachments to it. So I'll just do a little bit of Fine Edge right there. Maybe I would go in there and take that out. But right now I'm just going to say, okay. And we have this in here, and you can't really see those flyaways on that one. If we go to this one, you can see those flyaways a little bit better. And again, you have this little rim around her. And another way to get rid of that rim, let's see if it works with her, is we're going to take this, Command J, turn this off, and apply this layer mask again, same approach, to get her by herself. And if you go over here to Layer and down here to Matting, there's a thing called Defringe. And this defringe, if you go to 1 or 2 pixels, 1 pixel hopefully will get rid of most of that. You say okay, and it didn't really get rid of much of it. It got more rid of the flyaways than it did anything. But sometimes that works. So if I want to try 2 pixels, and I haven't found that 2 pixels is any different than 1 pixel. I even went up to 5 pixels and it doesn't seem to matter. But let's just do 3 pixels and see what it does. Yeah, didn't do anything. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you also have an option, and this one hardly ever works, but let me try it. Let me go back in history here. And we do layer, matting, and remove white matte. Ooh, so that actually added a little bit of black in there. It actually doesn't look too bad. But I brought these flyaways in. Looks pretty good here. So maybe removing the white matte works really well. Really all you'd have to do is fix her little crown up here. There's a little bit of discoloring up there. And remove this right here. So if I wanted to do that, I can do it a couple ways. Go to my brush tool, and we're going to paint with black to remove on a layer mask. And I'm just going to come in here and just kind of take this out and maybe make it a pretty soft brush so that it looks a little bit better like that. And then I could come up here and I could actually try to remove it using this, but usually doesn't work out too well when I'm doing that. So what I can also do, apply this layer mask. Oops. Apply this layer mask and create a new mask. Do a selection and then, oops, how come that went back? Sorry. I'm going to come in here, apply layer mask. Oh, I want to deselect and then create a, there we go. And then I want to come in here and do a selection. And what I want to do is I want to reduce this selection so that I can just expose that area up there. So I'm going to do a select, modify, contract. And we're going to do it by 1 pixel. And it's contracting that so you can just barely see. If I zoom in here, you can just barely see that above there we have that exposed. So what I'm going to do now is I have her selected, so I can't paint that away. I need to do a inverse of the mask. So I do select inverse. And now if you look, the marching ants are around the edges here, which means that I have the background selected. So now I want to paint with black around her top up here, and it should remove that little bit. And that's all I'm going to do is the top up there. Now if I deselect, it's gone. So if you notice, if I turn that off, it shows up. If I turn it on, it's gone. So that's a pretty good way to get rid of the highlights for this one. Any questions on that? I know I went through it really fast, but you have the recording of this that you can look at. But I wanted to go over a couple of different methods there. Now she has a dark line around her down here. This probably came whenever I did the remove the white matte. So I would need to get rid of that dark line. And I could do it the same way I just did this. So instead of deselecting, I could come here and continue painting down here on her arm. I didn't notice that until just now. But I could just continue painting down here to get rid of that black mask or that black edge. And hopefully that'll do it. Right there, I may have to do it again. But anyway, yeah, there we go. So now that black edge is gone. So pretty simple, huh? Any questions on that one? Okay. We're going to do one more. And we're going to do this one because it has some curls in it and some other things. So again, we're going to go through it pretty quick. I'm going to start with this purple one right here. We're going to resize it here. I'm going to put her above it. Then I'm going to come here and I'm going to take a medium right here. Like I said, you wouldn't normally do this, but it's just to show you the different shades that it works well on. Okay. So now we're going to select subject. I did it again. I need to be on her layer. You know, when you make so many mistakes, you know exactly what to do whenever it pops up. Okay, so now we have her selected again, and I could come in here and add these to the selection, but I prefer to do it in select and mask. So what I'm going to do is now go to select and mask. I'm going fast because I want to get to the sky replacements. So bear with me. I'm going to come in here now. I have her on layers again. If I show the edge, you can see that where the edge is. That's useful to just kind of see that. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on black, or on white, I mean. And I'm going to take the white down so that I can see those flyaways. So I'm going to come in here now, and I have it on 6 for the radius, and I'm just going to come in here and paint some of these flyaways and see if I can get some of them to come in. Grab this one right here and just kind of get some of this. And I want to make sure that I have inside these little curls as well. Okay, come down here, get this. And then I'm going to come over here on this side. Get that flyaway. Come here. Some of this. All right. Now, I'm going to take this back up some more. And now we've got 50%. If I bring it up, some of these flyaways are definitely coming in now. So these are looking good. Okay, so it looks really good on white. Got a little bit right here. And you notice that I didn't get all of these flyaways that are over here and all of this stuff. I just wanted something to show, to give it some credibility. If I go to black, now we've got some of this halo and stuff again here. So I've gotten this, and I still need some work on. Get that out of there. Right here. And there we go. So now we've got it looking pretty good, except we've got some over here. And then we've got this on her shoulder there. And that didn't go away. Okay. All right, we'll get it later. Okay, so same thing. She's on a dark background, so she's going to have these halos around her. So I'm going to go ahead, 3 pixels feathering, nothing else selected. Select her. While she's on this light background, you can see some of the flyaways a little bit. You've got her curls, you've got this flyaway here, this one up here. Looks pretty good. We get a little bit darker. Now we've got some of this that we have to deal with. It looks pretty good right in here. On the right-hand side, you got this area to deal with. And you got this flyaway here and this right here to deal with. And of course, as it gets darker, even still, you'd have to come in here and do some of that stuff. So we could try, just for grins, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to apply the layer mask. I'm just going to see if the white matting, we'll do image, oops, layer matting. We'll do fringe first. And we'll do a couple of pixels and see if that does anything. And it did a little bit, but it kind of made it kind of crunchy. So I'm not really sure I like that. So we're going to back it off, and I'm going to try the remove white matte. And that actually looks really good. It actually made it dark for this particular instance. So that may be an answer for whenever you are have a light colored halo. Now it's a little bit dark, so you may want to come in here and kind of turn the opacity down a little bit to bring back some of that white. So anyway, that looks pretty good. Except up at the top, I would need to do some work up here to kind of soften that and change the color. That looks pretty good. On the dark one, go to this one. It actually looks really good. You go to the white one or the really light one, and it looks really good as well. So any questions on any of these? You just have to practice this. That's all there is to it. And you just have to know that, like I've said 5 or 6 times, if she's on a white background, you want to have a light colored background that you're putting her on. Otherwise, you have more work to do. And most of the time, guys would say, I won't even mess with it unless it's on the same kind of background. Typically, whenever I am doing my banners or posters, I send my stuff out, let somebody else mess with it. It only costs $1.50 to have somebody to extract my players. So I usually have them do that. But if I'm doing my own composites or something, or I'm just kind of doing my own little project, then I'll do it myself. Or if it's a one-off for somebody, if I'm doing a poster for somebody and it's a one-off, then I will do it myself. Okay, last chance for questions. All right, I did want to show you this one. This one would be very difficult to extract. Now, if you zoom in here, you can see that there is a little bit of separation, but you've got brown on brown, and that is not going to be easy. So what you would probably wind up doing is adding your own little edges here to make it, try to make it look real. Probably get rid of all these flyaways here, and her hair really actually goes down something like this. So you would probably get rid of all these flyaways and then just kind of add some softness of hair in here to make it look real. On the other side, it's a little bit better, a little bit easier, but still very difficult. Now, if you did a select subject, it actually, sorry about that, it actually does a pretty good job of selecting the subject. But whenever you go out to do the refine edge, it's going to have a little bit of difficulty knowing what's there. So it's just going to kind of soften that edge. And that may be good enough, you know, just to kind of soften that edge a little bit. But this is a much more difficult extraction than any of the others when they're on a light background. But putting her on a light background would be difficult, whereas putting Jenna on these light backgrounds works out real well. Putting her on a light background isn't going to work. Putting her on the darker background, because she's coming off of a dark background, is what you're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to close all of these. And we're going to open up these others. Let's see. This. Okay. And you know that these images that I have, are, you know, these are all images that I shot, but they're not necessarily good images. They're just images that are really good for what I want to show you. Particularly the first one we're going to look at here. I shot it in 2009, I believe, 2010. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but it's a Sedona image of the Cathedral Rock. And I actually was really proud of it when I shot it, and I replaced the sky and made it a bright blue. And it really didn't work with that image. I actually put it in competition, and it really didn't work. So, whoops, where is it? Oh, here it is. We're going to do this one first, but it's very simple and easy to replace this sky. First off, I'm just going to say this: if you have Luminar 4 and you use the sky replacement, it does an absolute awesome job. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. But we're going to start with this one, doing it ourselves. And for this one, I'm actually going to use the quick selection tool. which is right here, if I just kind of drag it and then drag it over here, it does a really decent job. It just misses in a couple of places, like right here. So we're going to take this and I'm going to drag across here. I'm pressing the Alt key to remove. And then there's a place right up here where it misses. And I like to make sure that that's in there. So I'm going to use my lasso tool on this one. And I'm going to come in here and I'm using my mouse instead of my tablet. But that worked out pretty good. So I got that. And then there's some other areas up here. But all I have to do is take this as a selection. And remember, we want to select the opposite of the sky. So I'm going to do a Command-Shift-I or Control-Shift-I to reverse it so that I'm selecting the cathedral rock itself and not the sky. So now, I did it again. I knew I'd forget this. I'm going to save this selection so that I don't have to do it again. I'm going to call it Mask 2 because I think I already have a Mask 1 out there. And I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to bring in some skies here, or a sky. And I think, the sun is behind me when I'm shooting this, and it is kind of sundown. So I really want something that's kind of this color. So I just kind of go in here and look for a sky, and maybe I select this one. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to bring it down here. And I can't put it underneath that one because it's locked, but I will unlock it. I'm going to take it here, and we're going to go like this, enter, and then I'm going to unlock this and move this down underneath it like that. Okay, so now I can actually do my selected mask. So if I come in here, I'm going to grab my selection again. Oops, mask. Okay, and now I've got that selection. So I'm going to go into selected mask now. And I have black selected here. So if I select on layers, oh, you know what? Here's what the problem is. I have two layers here, and this layer is a multiply layer on top of this layer. So I need to actually have these two combined. So what I'm going to do is a little trick here. I'm going to do Command G to make a group, and then I'm going to drag this group, make a second group, and then I'm going to take this group, I'm going to merge it, and then I'm going to ungroup this group. So all I did there was take these two and combine them to make this one. And there's a multitude different ways to do that, but this is the way I'm doing it. So now I can turn these off. Now I do selected mask again, and you don't need to know that I just said. It's just a way of getting those together. If you have your own way, that's okay too. So here we go. So now we've got this sky back here. And of course, this sky really probably needs to be a lot darker. But if you look at it, we're almost done. All I would do is come in here and look at the edges. And you have a little bit of white showing up here, a little bit down here. And everything is actually coming through really well. So I really don't need to do much more than this. Typically what happens when you do this is you have a little bit of a halo and you need to come in here and remove that halo, but this is already done. So by doing a smart radius with 6, it has softened that edge enough where it looks natural, okay? There's a little bit right there, so I might come in here and just kind of paint over that like that. To get rid of that whiteness. Okay, and I have a 3 feather on there, and that looks pretty good. The only thing I would need to do is maybe adjust the sky so that it's a little darker, because that's like late in the evening. So pretty simple. If you have straight edges like this, you don't have a bunch of trees or something, then pretty simple. And let me show you another way to do exactly the same thing. going to come in here. Let me make this a smart object. There we go. Always, whenever I use a filter, I always turn it into a smart object. So we're going to go filter, Skylum, Luminar 4. And you're going to see how awesome this is. But if you don't have Skylum, or if you don't have Luminar, then you have to know how to do it the other way. And you might need to know how to do it that way anyway, because this doesn't always work, just like 90-something% of the time. So we're going to pick, and it could be, and the thing I really don't like about this is that you can't see your skies. So I really don't know what I'm getting. Sunset really doesn't work because the sun is not in that side of the sky. It needs to be like a yellow sky. I could come in here and pick my own, but I don't know where all those skies, I mean, I'd have to go looking, picking and hunting and everything. So I'm going to select the sunset just for grins. And it's going to pop something in there. Now that's not going to work, obviously, because the sun's on the wrong side. But I want you to look at this. Look at how awesome it selected that. Just as well as what we did just a minute ago. Now it does have kind of a purple outline here, like a chromatic aberration or something, which is kind of unusual. But it did an awesome job. The only thing it did wrong is it didn't select this. So it didn't see that as part of the ground. It thought that's part of the sky. So there are other things you can do here. And one of the things is I can change the horizon position, move it up or down. I can relight the scene, make it lighter or darker. Let's back out so you can see that. Make it lighter and darker. I can do horizontal blending, which basically blends this area a little bit better. I pushed it way out there. Got rid of those clouds when I did that. I don't like that. And I don't know what Sky Global does. I keep going back and forth with that one. I'm not really sure what it does. I'm not real good at this, but I wanted to show it to you. Close gaps. There we go. See that popped that back up there. When I said close gaps, it brought that back in. So maybe that's what I needed to do there. Sky Local, I'm not sure what that does. Sky Defocus makes it blurry. I would never use that. Atmospheric haze just makes it kind of lighter color. I really want it to be a darker color. Temperature, cool, might want to cool it off here. It's a late evening. And exposure, might want to bring it down a little bit, something like that. So this is awesome. If you have Skylum, this is the way to go for sky replacements. We'll come over here and we'll kind of compare the two. Now, obviously, this isn't a good sky. The issue with that, I need to have this guy up here and put these in a group. I'm just going to compare. So this is on compared to this. And you can see if you look up here on the edge, my sky that I selected is way too bright. So you have a really sharp edge here. It's much sharper than it should be because there's a lot of contrast there. If I turn that off, I darkened this sky so it looks a lot softer, so it works a little bit better. But as far as the selection is concerned, it does a pretty darn good job. Both of them. Actually, Luminar found this thing, whatever that is, a tree or something, or mine didn't select it. Nobody's going to know that, but you. So anyway, there are a couple things I don't like about the Luminar thing. One of them is that you can't see the skies before you select them, so you need to know what sky you're going to do. And if I really wanted to use this sky right here, I could. I just need to have it ready and have it located so that I can go in there whenever I create the image and pop that sky in there and make it work. So that is, I mean, that's one of the things I don't like is that you can't see the skies before you use them. The other thing I don't like is that I can't do anything in regard to the perspective here. If I wanted to squish this to make these clouds a little flatter or whatever, I can do that for me, but we can't do that in Luminar. So there are some drawbacks to using Luminar. But if you're happy with what you have with the sky, you can't beat it. It actually, I mean, it does such a great job finding those edges and making them work. And you're going to see that more here in just a second. Any questions on this one? Okay, we're going to try to do this one next. Now,
This one's hard.
is that?
I said that one's harder.
This one is actually, yeah, going to be a little bit harder, but it's still not as hard as you might think.
It's hard.
It's hard.
We're going to use luminosity masks. So I'm going
I made it hard.
to.
Well, I'm curious. I know you showed us once before about the skies, and I was like, well, that's cool. And then when it came time to actually do it, when I was playing with it, I was like, I know I did it a much harder way. So this will be good.
I've had some success with color range selection, but not necessarily great success.
Okay. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what method you use. The thing is to get a good selection. And when you get, you know, the better selection you have, the better results, of course, you're going to have.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm going to use luminosity mask for this. So you remember how we use luminosity mask, right? You come in here and you're actually looking for something that really separates the sky from these edges. And you can, you can select something like one of these looks pretty good to me. And what I would do is let's just use that one. And I'm going to right click and duplicate the channel. And I'm just going to say mask. And just to give it a name. And I'm going to turn it on and then turn this one off. And now I can do whatever I want to with this one because it's a copy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Command L. And I'm going to use levels to try to adjust the sky to make it brighter and keep the trees dark. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push the whites over to the left and see how it's making the sky brighter. And I keep pushing it. And then I have a little bit of grays in here. So I'm going to take the midtones and I'm going to push them back the other way. And it's going to remove those grays. Okay. So basically I've just made a much nicer mask of all the trees by using this luminosity mask and levels. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this down here, and the easy way to do that is with the gradient tool. Just grab it, press G, and if you remember, wherever you start with your gradient, everything before that's going to turn black. So all I have to do is paint with black right here and just go up a little bit, and everything down here is going to turn black. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good mask. Now the thing about this is that you have removed all of your grays. By removing all of your grays, you've removed all of your gradients from white to black. So this is going to be a really crunchy type of a selection. So we just have to know that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a Command or a Control click so I get my marching ants. And then again, I don't want the sky. I want to select everything but the sky. So I can go to select inverse. And now you can see that my marching ants are all around here so that I'm selecting everything but the sky. So now I'm going to click on RGB to bring the colors back and go to layers. And basically now I'm ready for select and mask. The only thing is I don't have my sky as a background here for me to look at. So I'm going to go select, save selection, and I'll just call it sky. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to pull down a sky here. And this is actually a morning. Robbie, you probably remember this when we were out there. This is a morning, like at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And it was a little chilly, but the sky is actually behind, or the sun is actually behind us. So if I put a sun over here, it's not going to make sense for those of us that know. And besides that, there's some light here, which looks like it's coming from this direction. So I need a sky that's just kind of a sky that has a sun on it. So this one might work. Let's just grab this one just for grins. I'm not sure it's going to work, but we'll try it. And I want to squish it down because we're kind of at an angle. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to squish it down like this. Now, I can't go too far because I have some opening in the trees over here. So I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to bring this underneath like that. So now I'm going to go back to this layer, and I'm going to go select, load the selection, and we're going to load sky. So now I have that. So now I'm going to come in here with select and select the mask. And right off the bat, you can see there's all kinds of white halos here.
Yeah.
All kinds of white halos. And no matter what you do, you're not going to get rid of these because this is, excuse me, the sky is much darker than the original sky, just like I said earlier with the subjects. So we have to kind of trick the system a little bit. And this is Bob Woodfin's method. This is not something somebody taught me. This is my method. But if you look at the show edge, you can see everywhere around here that it actually selected. Now, I may have brought the sky and bring the sky up too high because I think there may be some more down here. Anyway, we'll forget about that. It actually shows the edge where it went around everything, and it actually did a pretty good job. There are some places where there are some limbs, like right here, where there's some limbs that come out a little further. We're not going to worry about those too much so that we can get going here and get done. But I am going to say that we can get rid of this white stuff a little bit a different way. So I'm not going to mess with anything here. I'm just going to say, okay. And to tell you the truth, I just kind of discovered this like yesterday. But it works well for me. And I don't know that it's going to work well for anybody else. But if we'll just try some of the other methods. For example, I'm going to take this and copy it. I'm going to turn this off and apply so that I have this by itself. I have the original down here, so it's not lost. And then I have this. Now the sky, I'm going to move it up a little bit because you got this little area down here. So we're just going to move it up just a little bit. There we go. Whoops. There we go, like that. And let me just take it to the left a little bit too. Looks like it's not quite far enough. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to try some of these other methods. We're going to go to layer, matting, we'll try to fringe, and I'm going to go 4 pixels just for grins. And it did something, but it didn't get rid of everything. So, I mean, we could start with this and move on and try to do some other things. If we look down here, though, look how that is kind of nasty right there. And I don't know if we want to keep that or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to forget that. So here's my method. And I'm still trying to figure it out. So bear with me if I make a screw up. So I'm going to copy another layer here. And I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to double click and I'm going to use blend if. Now blend if, remember, I'm removing white whenever I pull this down this way. So by pulling this down, I should be pulling these light halos out here and revealing the dark limbs underneath them. So I'm going to pull it back a little bit at a time. You see it brought that back. So I'm going to go ahead and split it apart here by pressing the Alt or Option key. And what this does is it gradates it. So now look at it. We've kind of gotten rid of all of the whites all around. See that? Pretty good, huh? I told you you'd want to know about the blend if way back when. So all of those, you might have a little bit right there that you'd want to deal with, but for right now, we're going to say that that works. So the problem is that this is global whenever I do this. So I don't want it to be applied anywhere down here. Notice that it took out this reflection here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mask on here. I'm going to invert it so that it hides what I just did. Okay. Then I've got to come in here and paint it in. So I'm going to go with it. Black brush or big brush here, paint black or paint white to reveal, and You're not going to see anything yet, but it's going to come in here and reveal. Now you could probably do this an easier way, but this is the way I'm doing it at the moment. It's hard to see this cursor. Come in here and paint. Anywhere where there's sky that comes through, or anywhere where those white dots are, or white halos are. Okay, then in order for it to work, I've got to come down here and I've got to hide it from this particular layer. So now I need to paint with black, and there goes away all of those whites. Okay. Now the issue here would be if you had like a white sign or something up here, or something that was supposed to be white, that the sky, you know, it's in the sky. Maybe there's a white airplane or something that you wanted to show. That would be an issue. Okay, so we still have some halos over here, so I would need to come in and do a little bit more with the blend depth, but you get the idea. Now, it left a little bit of a thing right here, and what that is that I didn't exactly match these, so I'm going to take this and paint black, or paint white, I mean, and come in here and get this back.
Just duplicate the top layer's mask to the second from the top, and then invert it.
You know, that's what I've been doing, and I don't know why I didn't do it just now. but you're right. I could take this, and I'll just throw this away. And instead of doing what I did, what she's saying is I could take this and copy it down here, and then just take this and invert it, and you got it. The only thing is, for some reason, they're not exact, and I usually have to go back here and paint in along here to get this back.
I've not seen that.
You've not seen this method?
No, I've not seen where oh, I think I know what happened. Never mind.
So this is a way that you can do it in Photoshop. Now let me show you the easy way.
Luminar.
We're going to move this up here, and I'm going to put these in a group. Call this select and mask.
Not having Luminar, I would probably make several selections in different layers and mess with them independently.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of ways that you could probably do that, but I couldn't find anybody. You know, I watched stuff on the internet and everything, and everybody says if you put a white background where there was originally a dark background, you're going to have problems. If you put a dark background and blah, blah, blah. So they never did introduce anything that could be, you know, a way to fix that.
Bob, I have a question. If you've changed the sky that dramatically, wouldn't you change the colors of the reflection in the water?
Yes, that's something else too. And I wanted to point, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is something also that Luminar doesn't do. So if you were to do this with Luminar, you would need to also come down here and copy this and turn it upside down and try to, you know, to fill it in here. So good point. Very good. Thank you for mentioning that. And I, you know, I meant to mention that too, that when you do it with Photoshop, the select and mask method, you're going to have to also take that in consideration. So this sky, for example, very dramatic up here, but there's nothing right here that shows it. So you would need to have this copied down here somehow, and then probably blur it quite, you know, until it blends in. And same over here. Well, this is darker, but you'd need to darken it a little bit. So you need to have something to make that blend in real well. But this is obviously too dark. But I mean, this is the relight the scene. Oops, I want to brighten it. So anyway, dramatic sunsets too much. Try that one. That one's better. This is more like a morning sky. But you know, I'm done basically. And look at how it did. There's no halos. There's nothing. If you have Luminar and you want to do some sky replacements, I mean, this is the way to do it. You just have to know what the limitations are. I can't see the skies. I can always go get my own sky if I want to, but I have to have it ready. I can't squish the sky if I want a little bit different perspective. I'd have to, you know, use one of my skies and squash it. I don't even know where these skies are, where I could go and alter them if I wanted to. So, and then for both of them, like you said, you'd have to put them in down here as a reflection. So this is the easy way. This is obviously the easy way. Then you apply. And then if you compare, you're going to notice that the trees here are darker because you have a darker sky and a darker scene. When you get over, when it finishes here, and you get over to Photoshop and look at the one that we did in Select and Mask, it's obviously brighter. The trees are brighter. So if I wanted to, see, if I wanted to have these trees, now it doesn't look very good, does it? When you compare it to the one that Luminar did, it's awesome. This one, the sky isn't great anyway, but it would require some more work to go in and remove some of that white stuff. But that's what happens whenever you do the luminosity mask and you take out all the grays. But you need to take out all of those grays in order to get the selection for the selected mask. And about the only thing you could do that I know of is maybe push that smart radius, or push that radius up to like 25 or something, and see if that will push out and try to get more of the background. But that's just the opposite of what you want. You don't want the background to be added to these limbs. So anyway, I'm not really sure what the answer is if you don't have Luminar.
But Bob, is Luminar separate from Photoshop?
Yes, it's a plugin. It's actually can be a standalone program too.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you deal with, Mary had asked, and I had already thought about that, but she beat me to ask the question about the reflections. I mean, is there an easy way to kind of put some color in the, like if you were to use this sky and you want to just put a little bit of that color in there?
Right. Well, what I would start with, and maybe it's the wrong way to go, but what I would start with is just coming up here, and I would make a selection and do like Command J, and then take that selection and flip it vertical, and okay, flip it vertical, I said. Okay, well, I don't know what's going on here. It's not flipping. Oh, is it? No, it didn't flip vertical. Wow. So I told you I've got ghost in here or something. Flip vertical. Well.
So basically you would just turn it over and kind of like lay it on top of that, I guess.
Yeah, I know what.
For lack of a better term.
I had it on the bottom.
Here it comes.
Yeah. So, I'll put it in the group now. So where the heck is it? Here it is. So I would then take that and then just kind of take it up and try to match it in here somehow to what the water is. And then I would come in here and probably mask it quite a bit. If I can get my cursor here, there we go. And just come in here with black and take it, probably move, turn the opacity way down, something like that, and then mask it out in here at 10% a stroke. You come in here something like this, so that it's kind of matched, and get rid of this line, something like this. This would be my approach. Now, not sure.
So your best option is to make sure that you have a beautiful sky when you shoot the original photo.
There you go. We need to tell Tony that that's a requirement next time.
Really? There you go.
No, the requirement is a next time.
Yes.
Absolutely. So anyway, something like this, it's not great and it doesn't really match right here and in here and everything, but something like that, and then come in here and probably blur it.
Yeah.
So, and I would probably try to do a motion blur, and have it blurring sideways like the rest of it is. If I can get that. And decide, the problem is you can't see, it does have the preview, but I can't see anything. Just kick it up here. Because it doesn't seem like it's doing anything right there. That's going to be way too much. We'll just do, I don't know why it's not previewing, but say okay, and it's not really giving me a blur. I don't know what's going on with my Photoshop today.
You have gremlins.
I do, I tell you, it's just not working. But anyway, that's kind of what I would do, and I took the whole thing here and I moved it down accidentally. So any other questions? I mean, we're at the hour now. This was a lot, and it's something that you just have to play with and try over and over, and think about the things that we've learned so far. That's what made me think about that blend if, to get rid of the white, was that's something that we have worked with. How do you get rid of white? How do you remove it without having to go around there with a brush and try to remove it? So that's what brought that to my attention. So anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was
Yes, thank you.
very informative.
Yes, thank you, Bob.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right. Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Stay well.
Oops.
Where's the
Oh.
stuff?